Just as Ala, what you're saying there in terms of efficiency. I mean, look. I mean, I not want to drag you into this discussion about Canadian healthcare. It's certainly been a topic, an important topic for us because there's such a huge financial and economic component. If money was free, we'd have different things going on in the system. But they act like money's free and it's not. So leaving that. But are you optimistic about some of the technology you see that you're working directly studying, et cetera, will make some positive changes to the system in terms of efficiency, as you just alluded to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you got to have constraints in order to require things to be more efficient. If there's no constraint, you're not efficient. But my observation over the last year in particular, year and a half, has been that there are real tools that can be that are being deployed and being used that reduce the burden, simplify things. The results are more accuracy, more efficiency, and support for doctors and physicians, but also better healthcare outcomes for patients.
Mm-hmm.
A better experience, a better result, and overall, that means a better result for a healthcare system like ours. State-pay systems, unlike the U.S., the government pays for a baseline, and so there are tools and approaches that are appropriate in that kind of system that don't work in the U.S.
I think this has to be the coolest area that people look for investment, but also changing in our society. Blake Corbet is Senior Vice President of Corporate Development from Healwell AI. Blake, first of all, we do appreciate you taking time. And I was thinking, what a great week to talk with you. Now, you do much broader than this, I know, but we just had the Consumer Electronics Show, finish off this weekend. And I forget how many exhibitors there are, 4,200 exhibitors, 180,000 people coming through, all of that. But I mean, talk about where the action is. And you spend your time on a couple of areas that, first of all, are very of great interest to me personally and our audience, and that's healthcare and the changes going on and the technological applications you're looking at, and artificial intelligence. I mean, intelligence, obviously the hottest area, anywhere in the investment market. So I appreciate you taking time. Maybe we could start with the healthcare side and what you guys do at Healwell.
Sure, thanks, Mike. It is exciting, and I love that this week, of course, as well in terms of tech and advancements. And thanks for the opportunity here. At Healwell, we are a TSX listed company that focuses on healthcare and data science in the AI space. Well Health is our largest shareholder, and that's a great partner because they've got clinics and we've got technology, and the fit for the two of them is really a good match. What we've been doing over the last few years, and in the last year in particular, has been acquiring companies and technology that provide AI-enabled tools for healthcare physicians, doctors, and clinicians to provide them with support, decision support, the tools and things that are needed to lessen the burden that doctors and healthcare practitioners. We all read and know about this, and we experience it, I think, ourselves. So that's been our objective. One of the key areas we started in as Healwell is in identifying rare diseases. So we've been using AI and algorithms to run screens on data in EMR data, electronic medical records data on patients, and risk stratify those patients for those that might be at a high risk for a particular rare disease. Rare diseases are very difficult to positively diagnose, and so this provides a tool that will identify a patient for the doctor that might be at risk for a particular disease, and then the doctor can decide what happens next. Right? If it's appropriate, they'll send that patient for a test. And then with the patient decide what the next step is, and usually they get put on a care path, and you get a better outcome. And this compresses a time frame that can take years to identify a rare disease down to a much shorter period, a much shorter time frame.
Just as Ala, what you're saying there in terms of efficiency. I mean, look. I mean, I not want to drag you into this discussion about Canadian healthcare. It's certainly been a topic, an important topic for us because there's such a huge financial and economic component. If money was free, we'd have different things going on in the system. But they act like money's free and it's not. So leaving that. But are you optimistic about some of the technology you see that you're working directly studying, et cetera, will make some positive changes to the system in terms of efficiency, as you just alluded to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you got to have constraints in order to require things to be more efficient. If there's no constraint,
Yeah.
you're not efficient. But my observation over the last year in particular, year and a half, has been that there are real tools that can be that are being deployed and being used that reduce the burden, simplify things. The results are more accuracy, more efficiency, and support for doctors and physicians, but also better healthcare outcomes for patients.
Mm-hmm.
A better experience, a better result, and overall, that means a better result for a healthcare system like ours. State-pay systems, unlike the U.S., the government pays for a baseline, and so there are tools and approaches that are appropriate in that kind of system that don't work in the U.S.
Let's come to the AI side of things. Obviously also dynamic. I mean, I'm just imagining this, that the rate of change must be just something phenomenal. It seems like every 15 minutes, there's another another new thing coming out. So I'm just thinking from your point as an analyst, you're looking at different companies, assessing their potential, mergers and acquisitions, all of that kind of stuff. Man, that must be head spinning because of the pace that me as an amateur sitting on the sidelines see coming.
Yeah, it's it's a spectrum for sure. If there is
Mm-hmm.
if change is not coming, then there's probably something wrong. There's always something new on the horizon. But what's been accomplished so far, and what's important, are products and tools that are finished and complete and can be deployed. The whole ChatGPT thing that we've all seen and talked about. We look at this as big events when ChatGPT 4 or Anthropic's new product get released. But the world of people that develop that look at it as a spectrum. It's constantly evolving and changing, and so it will grow and improve. And the whole point of AI is that it learns from mistakes that it makes, or from whether it's errors or mistakes, or just a decision that is close to the mark but not on the mark, and then over time, feedback gets that decision and that answer more accurate. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we look at the world in that way, and we like to provide these tools as support for physicians and healthcare practitioners.
Well, it's funny, just to admit this. I love it when I go on ChatGPT and I correct it. Like it'll come back with an answer and I know that's not the right answer. And I'll say, no, that's not the right answer. Look here. And then it comes back and goes, you're absolutely right. I put a star by my name when that happens, but because it's an evolving, sort of apparatus that I can use in that way. How do you evaluate these companies though? I mean, to me, I'm old time. I'm like Warren Buffett. I had a problem, when you're not looking at the traditional balance sheet measures, it gets very tough to evaluate. So you must be forced into that situation where you got to say, yeah, this is a great company. And you're talking, of course, also valuations.
Indeed, it's true, and that's actually a good question because we've looking at companies from an M&A perspective, we have to find and use filters to do exactly this. And one of the easiest filters for us is revenue, right? We use revenue as a filter because as a company develops a product, there are players, there are people that operate in the earliest stages, and they have enough knowledge to assess the value and the importance of a product that solves a problem before it's actually being paid for by somebody. That's a little more on the research side of things, let's say. What we look at when we're ready to buy a company is revenue. If a company has revenue from customers, more than one customer, recurring revenue, for example, on contract for the same product, these are tick boxes, right? As you worked your way earlier, companies will sometimes have one customer and some pilot revenue from that. So it's project-based revenue that is, part of the development of the product. So how those companies work their way through the early pilot stages with a valuable customer, perhaps that gives them feedback that improves the product before it can then be deployed, is a sign, and the indications of that are how much revenue, and more importantly, what kind of revenue that company is generating from their product.
Can I just, again, I know it's a broad question, but if I ask you to put the temperature on the Canadian tech side of things, what's happening in our country that way, because I happen to just personally know a couple of people who went down to the States, to further their project. Seemed like the venture capital is more available. And again, that's just an anecdotal kind of observation from me. You're on that side of, in Canada. How would you, is it a robust industry? What changes could we make to even take more advantage? Because we've done very well on Money Talks recommending U.S. tech companies,
Yeah.
to people. So
yeah, U.S. is for sure a bigger market. The sizes and the dollar amounts are larger and bigger, and the opportunities are often bigger. It's interesting though, and I used to be really concerned about the brain drain to the U.S. What I've found in the last few years is that there has been a little bit of a reversal on that, just because of the environment in the U.S. has been, a little less welcoming, and as we've shifted over the last, we had a decade plus of essentially zero interest rates, and when the cost of money changed a couple of years ago, it really changed the way things are funded. Businesses and companies and ideas were funded going forward, and so that's a measure. Within Canada, across that whole time frame, we've been in a really good position because we have had there are a couple of centers of deep knowledge in Canada, Montreal, and has a whole world of externalities around AI and deep mind and knowledge based in that part of the world. We've got D-Wave in quantum computing in west here in Vancouver or in Burnaby, and so there are pockets of knowledge that attract and draw people from all over the world. They don't care where they live. What they want to do is be near the center of development for some of these advanced topics. So that's, so we've got the right environment in Canada for the most part. One of the other things that I hear a lot about, and there was just a change recently to the SR&ED tax credits program, but whenever I talk to U.S. investors, venture investors, and others, and they learn and hear about the SR&ED tax credit plan, they look at that as a really valuable tool. And we see it too for early stage companies, because it really is not the government's business to be making direct investments in companies. What they should be doing is providing an environment for companies to grow and fail if that's what they're going to do, rather than making individual bets. And the SR&ED tax credit program allows some companies to benefit from that and grow. And you know what? You're going to get successes and failures out of all of that, but it should be the market that determines what those are, and not the government.
Well, we could introduce them to that concept in several other areas, but I won't put that on you.
Yeah.
How important is tax policy, though? Because I remember when the capital gains exemption, which is now incredibly controversial because it was never legislation, never passed, and CRA says they're still going to collect it, which to me is bizarre because it isn't going to happen when the House meets. There's going to be a confidence vote. We'll be going to an election, and the Conservatives have said we're not passing that. So we were, well, they'd have to reintroduce it and then not pass it. But my point only being, at that time, I heard from the tech industry basically saying this is not a good thing. This is not something that attracts capital.
Yeah, we need to, so we do want to do things that attract capital. That's important because that investment is, we see it around us all the time. Tax policy, tax is one of those things. It's like a black box to most of us. And the most important thing that tax policy can be is transparent and clear. Having to hire a lawyer or an advisor to interpret the tax policy before you make business decisions is really not a conducive environment. Simplifying and making rules clear is essential. And then ensuring that if a decision is made and you make a business decision, financial and business decision based on a tax policy, that the government can't come back later and say, yeah, we changed our mind. I know we gave you a letter that said it was okay, but we decided that's not appropriate. Can't do that. Should not be able to do that. Make a change and from there forward. But, so those are the sorts of things that I think are easy to do. If you want to use tax policy to attract capital, make it simple and clear.
Let me just finish with this about investors, people wanting to be involved in this industry. As I said, sometimes for the individual, it's impossible to make an evaluation, especially based on what we used to know. And your points are very well taken that way. But where do you suggest an investor start with this? Because I know people I mean, past NVIDIA, if you know what I mean, which has
Yeah.
got awfully expensive for people. What are recommendations would you do, advice that you'd give?
Yeah, that's interesting and minefield-filled question.
Yes.
I too looked at Nvidia and was thinking back during the crypto boom that this was something that I should own, and it got out of hand. And then, of course, it went into just a completely different category. And I even this week with the the controversy between Nvidia and D-Wave after a year of expansion in quantum computing, there are trends that are driving fundamental change in our world. And so some of those are, it's difficult to pick individual stocks. So ETFs are a good way to do this, or, look for ways to follow a trend, because even the best stock picker is going to miss some of the, some of these. So the way I approach it is some general investments that are going to capture broad trends. And then you have a mad fund for individual investments. And I've got some private investments and some public investments that surprise even me over time. That when I think that one was a sure winner and it's just done nothing, and another one that I thought was dead is now turned on with a great contract with with Amazon. So you just it's very difficult to pick things individually. Follow trends and make sure that you're exposed generally. You want exposure to this for sure.
Well, absolutely. This is great stuff, Blake, and I really appreciate you taking time. And just to remind people, you're Senior Vice President of Corporate Development from Healwell AI. And you can find Healwell at www.healwell.ai. Blake, thanks for finding time. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, so I hope I can put the rod on you and say, I hope we visit again in the near future.
Indeed. I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike.